Hey, real quick before we get into this, I'm just wanting to say that this is all just my opinion and all that fun stuff. You don't have to worry about it if you liked it and I didn't and blah blah blah. I just wanted to say that it's just my opinion, brain opinion, bye. But not actually bye. Well, hello there, folks. How are we doing today? Hopefully you're all doing peachy keen fantastic. Thanks for stopping by. I just wanted to talk a little bit about The End and the Death Volume 3, because I just recently finished it. I technically finished it today, I guess. Actually, no, I finished it yesterday, and then I went over a bunch of stuff in it again today. And so I just wanted to give like a little bit of a review of it because, you know, I've been reading a lot of these Horus Heresy books and things like that. We have a couple videos on the channel dedicated to the Horus Heresy books. Now, the first thing I'm going to say is that I think that the Horus Heresy is too long, and I think this book has a lot of symptoms of that and a lot of issues caused by that. And I think we're going to get into that a little bit, but before I really get into anything else, I will just say a lot of this book did not particularly interest me. I didn't particularly care about Constantine Valdor or Rogaldorn, but anybody who already knows my opinion on Rogaldorn probably knew I wasn't going to care about Rogaldorn. I was getting tired of it just being so dragged out. I will say at the beginning there is a little cut to Perturabo as he's getting ready to quit the field because he's like, this is bad, I don't like it. So then he leaves and, you know, bees Perturabo in space where he's smashing a bunch of things. He's taking a big hammer. Oh, by the way, spoilers galore. I'm not holding back on any spoilers. Anyway, so he takes his hammer and he's like smashing things and he's going, oh, I don't like it when people lied to me, people used me. Which, you know, fair enough. The Emperor did kind of use you, and then so did Horus, although you're kind of dumb for falling for it twice. I don't know why you would fall for it twice. You already knew it was going to happen. Why did you fall for it twice? Anyway, so there's that. One of my favorite characters in the Horus Heresy, Lorgar, makes an appearance, and it's actually kind of interesting. He's basically on a planet that is like obsessed with divination. I think it was 14 months away from Terra. And they're obsessed with divination, and they're doing all these different things to see who wins and all this. And he's like kind of introducing them more and more to chaos, and it's kind of neat. There's also lots of flowers and a flower crown, and then he pulls out a knife, and he's like, "Wow, knife!" Boo-doo-doo-doo. So you know that there's that one kind of going through, and you're just like, "Wow, that's just interesting, isn't it?" And it turns out that a lot of it is just sort of, you know, not great. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that for me personally, there's only one character I kind of cared about. Well, two, I guess technically two, that I kind of cared about that were not directly taking place in the fight with the Emperor. And I'm just gonna get that out of the way now. Euphrates, Keeler, and Sigismund, because you know they got the Emperor worshiping they blood brain type deal, and I think it's kind of interesting just to talk about them a little bit. But you know, honestly, not that much happens. Sigismund kind of runs around, he's killing lots of people, and then they go to the Hollow Mountain, and then they're like, okay, now we're going to use it, and we're going to have these Dark Angels of the other people, and we're going to kill some Chaos guys. Who gives a flying fuck about killing any of the Chaos guys in the siege at this point? We all know that Typhus is going to live because he's in 40k. We also know that Abaddon's going to live, so nothing's going to happen to him. We know that Erebus lives, so it kind of gets to a thing where like we have all these different characters that could have interesting things happen to them, and they could have all this different stuff happen. But like, let's be real here. If there are two characters, right, and one is only for the heresy as far as we know, and the other one is a character that is within 40k, you kind of know like who's gonna win if anybody wins there. And it was just like a thing where it's just like they're really trying very hard to play with the whole idea of like, oh man, time has stopped and all this crazy stuff is going on, and it's like I don't know if time really stopped. Like they keep writing that time has stopped, but then they write that Gilliman is like 9 hours out and he's like getting closer, so they're like, oh, time has stopped in this moment. It's like, clearly time has not stopped because everyone's still moving, still operating within time and space. So I don't know why they kept saying that. That is like probably one of the most annoying and like silly things throughout the whole siege. Or well, not the whole siege, but through the End of the Death, all 3 volumes. The whole thing is like, everything starts to feel very contrived because like, oh, well, the ship and the palace are merged into one in this chaos realm. Isn't that crazy? And it's like, well, the problem with it is that it starts to feel really contrived because like people just end up in places kind of just cuz, and you're just like, oh, okay. Why? Or it's like the first guy who gets over the wall in the previous book is like, you know, just like some random Night Lord who just basically gets magicked into being over the wall. I'll also be honest in saying that I was completely unaffected by the death of Sanguinius. I don't know. Everybody talked about it like it was a big deal, or I saw a lot of people talking about it like it was a big deal, but honestly, like who gives a shit? That was in the Death Volume 2. Anyway, now let's get to the actual meat of it. And the actual meat of it is talking about the fight between Horus and the Emperor. First thing I'm going to say, way too goddamn long. Way too long. Like, at a certain point, it gets really, really hard to care, right? Because you already kind of know what's going to happen. But maybe some interesting things are going to, like, occur. Maybe we'll learn little bits of information or something like that. But then it's like, okay, so the Emperor gets... Okay, so basically the Emperor gets the shit kicked out of him, like, 3 times, I think? Yeah. He beats the living crap out of him, and then he's going to put his father on... Okay, so... The Emperor gets beaten 3 times. Horus comes up and is like, I'm gonna put you on this throne, father, because I built this throne for you so you could take a break. I'm so good and cool. And then, like, his dad, like, puts his hand on his chest and, like, steals energy from him and then blasts him back. Then, they do it again. Only this time, like, he, like, basically kind of rips a lot of flesh off of him and is trying to, like, kill him. Kill, die. And then, you know, they get up again, and then they do it one more time, and then it's like, just like, okay, why are we doing this? It just felt so drawn out. Like, there's just something about it where, like, the initial drama of the clash vanishes really quickly, because it's just like, I think out of like hundreds of pages are dedicated just to this fight. I don't think you can write a fight that is that long, that is that interesting, and have it just be one guy on one guy. I just don't think you can. Now, of course, it's not exactly one guy, because, you know, Constantine is there, and... Or no, is it Constantine? Okay. No, it's one of the custodians. I'm sorry, it's not Constantine. It's one of the custodians, and Loken, and Leitu. And they're all there, and they're just kind of doing their thing, and trying to fight, and help, and do all this stupid shit. But it's like... Oh, and... Loken keeps talking to Horus and be like, you're being controlled, father, you're being controlled. It's like, yeah, obviously. He's the only one that doesn't know that. And it's like, At this point, why wouldn't you look at him and go, like, he's too far gone? Apparently, he's not actually too far gone, which is where we're going to get into something else weird. I don't think it's kind of funny about this fight. Completely unrelated to that, really. The 4 Chaos Gods are apparently just sitting in a shadow watching this. And I shit you not, occasionally they go, oh, and then they, like, clap. They clap. They fucking clap. I want you to imagine just like, oh man, father, son, fratricide, baby, or patricide, baby, trying to kill each other, and then just in the background you just hear a glove clap, and it's just like, what the fuck is this? And it's just like, it starts to feel so dumb. And when the Emperor first comes into the scene, he looks at Horus, he's like, you killed my son. Why? He keeps, and like Horus tries to talk to him, and then Horus, it takes Horus like way longer than it probably should have to see that he's not even looking. The Emperor is not even looking at Horus. The Emperor is looking in the shadow, talking to the Chaos Gods. Which, by the way, at this point, Emperor, why are you even talking to the Chaos Gods? Like, this, shouldn't you know at this point that that's just there's the Chaos Gods? They're just pointing out. they're like little gremlins that have gotten very big gremlin. You know, like I don't know what to tell you about that. Although it is basically confirmed by the end of the fight, because basically what the Emperor does is he takes on the form of Loken after what's its face, Horus is convinced he's killed him. Horus is convinced he's killed the Emperor, but then he's like, okay, look, I can relieve some of the power because I'm so cool. So he lets some of the chaos gifts go away from him. And then, like, oh, it turns out that that's not Loken, it's actually the Emperor. And the Emperor is like, I'm gonna stab. And he's like, okay, I have to take the power back. So he starts to slurp the power back into himself. But it's slow and it's painful because the Chaos Gods don't like that he rejected their gifts, even if it's only for a second. So, after that, like, basically he gets an anathema and he's like, I'm gonna stab you, Horus. And Horus is like, stab me, daddy. Stab me before I get taken back by the Chaos Boys. And so he does. And then that's how Horus dies. He gets stabbed by an anathema. And it's just like, I don't know, it just feels so played out. It's like, who, at a certain point, I was kind of just like, who actually gives a shit, man? Who cares? Like, it's just gonna keep going. And it's like, unless you actually do something interesting, and I see that you're gonna do a flip, or like do something that's unexpected. Like when in the second book they put, is it the second book or the first book where they first put, no, I think it's the first book actually where they first put Malcador. I can't remember. They kind of all blend together for me because it's just one big mess. Anyway, Malcador's on the throne. One of the more interesting parts of the book actually is Malcador kind of talking about his perspective now that he's on the throne, and talking about how he's like kind of like existing and not existing, and he's also kind of talking about how he like sees like all these different dark truths about the universe, and how it's much darker than he originally thought. I will say that I was a little bit miffed at the whole, it's actually even darker than we thought. It's like, dude, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up with your grim dirt bullshit. Shut up. But it was at least an interesting perspective. A bunch of the characters are running around. Who cares? Although one thing that really made me laugh was that at one point during the fight, basically Horus and the Emperor are fighting with like tarot cards and like warp space basically, and it just really felt like a Magic the Gathering duel, or like Yu-Gi-Oh! Like they were like, I play the tarot of this and then it does this, and it's just like, what the fuck. It was like just such a dumb way to do it, and I just kept thinking like, this is just like two nerds fantasy of like playing Yu-Gi-Oh! But like with actual demons and shit. I'm just like, okay man, fuck off. It's so silly. But like, honestly, that's probably one of the biggest things about it, is that it all just felt silly. Like the siege felt pretty serious until the last 3 books. The end of the death, as soon as the end of the death started, everything just starts feeling sillier and sillier to me, until it just felt so ridiculous, and it just felt like who gave a fuck, man? Like everything's like, and then it was bad, but did you know that it was bad? But did you know that it was bad? And then it was more bad, and it's like, who cares? Like, we all know that Terra survives this. We all know that like the whole dark age of, the dark age of the Imperium, or whatever the hell you want to call it, is not going to last like 10,000 years. Like, who cares? And I was mostly interested to see if they were going to do anything interesting with the fight, or if they were going to do anything interesting with the throne, because I thought something that would actually be pretty interesting, and I was almost certain they weren't going to do this, but I thought, like, because they put Malcador on the throne, what I thought would be really interesting is if it was Malcador or Constantine or somebody else on the throne. Someone else who was actually on the throne rather than the Emperor, because I think that would have been a twist that was like, wow, that's actually really interesting. You change like so much by doing that, and it actually explains some things in the lore, which they're never going to explain, doesn't matter. Oh, also, the reason... Oh, you can't see because I covered it, but apparently the Emperor had one of his eyes melt, and it's like a whole thing. They were literally at a certain point casting laser beams at each other. It's just like, this is just so stupid. It felt like 2 really shitty Gundams fighting each other. And I really don't think I like that they constantly try to paint the Emperor in a good guy light after everything he's done. Like in the last 3 books, they keep trying to paint him like, oh, he actually loved his sons and all this blah 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 blah. It's like, okay, fuck off, man. You can't do that now. Oh, also there's a fucking lady from Ravener. I think it's Ravenor in there, and I was just like, why is this here? Why is this lady here? That's another big thing, not related specifically to fight. There's just too much going on. There's too much random bullshit, and I know that the only reason there's so much random bullshit going on is because they've set up so many fucking characters throughout this whole thing that now you gotta like, oh well, hey, we have to have them all have a result, be resolved and things like that. It's like, I think you guys should have resolved a lot of these characters way before you got to the last 3 books. Like, honestly, like so many of these people just being like in these books is just, it's just too much, and it's just boring. It's boring to see random characters running around doing things. It's like, but honestly, the whole thing was kind of getting boring to me, where I'm just like, okay, look, is anything interesting going to happen in this fight, or is it just going to be like, because you know what you should have done? You should have had it be like one, maybe a little bit longer chapter dedicated specifically to the fight. and like have all the little things come out, but like the Emperor's already here and he's already come here to kill Horus. You already know that things are probably too far fucking gone. Why are we doing this? It just feels so nonsensical. Or if instead of actually being a fight directly with Horus, the Emperor almost like ignores Horus and is actually trying much harder to get the Chaos Gods. Because I mean, if you think about it, if they're there and you can hurt them, wouldn't that be a much grander prize than Horus ultimately? But I don't know. I really don't like it. I always like the idea that the Emperor was basically holding back the entire time because he wanted to like save Horus, but then he doesn't, and like eventually he just sees like the whole Alanius Pius thing, where it's like, oh, the guy who you know, this one lone guardsman who like stands up for the Emperor. That is a much better story than what we got, by the way. The whole perpetual thing is just, perpetuals sound interesting, but then like every time I've seen them written, it's just really bad. Oh, also, I really don't like how much John Grammaticus is in this book. I have disliked John Grammaticus from the time I read Legion onward. I have never liked John Grammaticus. He always just feels like such a self-insert, like wise guy type character. It's like, why is he here? It just completely throws off the setting. Well, the setting isn't quite right, but you know what I mean. It just throws off the book. Anytime he's involved a lot, and I realized as I was reading the Siege that he was getting way too involved in the end of this, to the point where I'm just like, okay, dude, I really don't like how much he was involved. But eventually, you know, he does his thing. He fucks off and has a feather from Sanguinius that he's going around doing his thing. And, you know, lots of people die, and who gives a fuck? I mean, honestly, that was just kind of the thing I kept coming back to, is like, why do I care? I feel like they just haven't done a very good job of making it so that there's any reason to care about what happens. Like, unless you happen to really like some of these characters, but some of the characters that you might really like just live. There's nothing wrong with them. They're fine. It's like, and then it's like the Emperor. The Emperor is like such a dumb character after a while. It's just like, I don't care that he's dying. I don't care that he's getting his shit rocked. Who cares? I don't care about all this different stuff that the Emperor is doing. And after a while, it's like, oh, this is just, it started to just feel like Marvel wank, you know? When like just two super type characters, like a supervillain, superhero, just start whacking each other. It starts to feel like two action figures, just like someone picked up an Emperor action figure and the Horus action figure, just mashing them together. It's like, come on, man. And by the end of it, though, it was interesting to see the insight that, like, even if you're the greatest champion of chaos, if you let them control you at all, you're just going to be their slave. I do like the confirmation of that. I think that's kind of interesting, and it also kind of sets up a little bit about like why Abaddon becomes the way he does later on. Is like he sees that Horus was like controlled like as like a puppet, and that makes the Black Legion books even more interesting to me in that sense. Also, every time like Constantine Valdor and Abaddon go against each other, which is like multiple chapters for some fucking reason, I was just like, I know that Abaddon doesn't die. I know that Abaddon doesn't die. It's like, what do you want? Like, I know that nothing that important is gonna happen, so it's like, who cares? And yeah, that was kind of like the main thing. I just kept having moments where I'm just like, who cares? And I gotta be honest with you, I'm glad the Horus Heresy is done. I think it went on way too long. I think there are way too many books, and I've read a couple more books since I made my last video, but not, I think 2, 3, not including this one. Unremembered Empire, Old Earth, and Born to Flame, Born to Fire, something like that. The Vulcan ones are pretty good. Vulcan really has become like my favorite Primarch, and he has a little bit in this, and it's kind of interesting because he's like, okay, I'm gonna blow up the palace, and he's clearly very regretful of it. And it's also interesting to see that he like regrets like sacrificing the Psychers to keep Malcador going. It's kind of interesting. But it's like such a small portion of the book. I would say, in all honesty, like at a certain point, so much of this is just the Emperor's fault. He stole power from the gods to make his big Primarchs. He was the one that was a terrible father. He was the one that didn't think things through. And by the way, this is something that's really annoying. There's a part in this where they say, oh, well, you know, you got to learn from the Emperor. The Emperor has plans for plans and plans, and then plans embedded in plans. And there's always something that can break the plan. It's just like, but, you know, I'm going to be real with you. If the Emperor had plans here, it doesn't really feel like it. It really doesn't. It feels like the dude has done very little throughout the entire heresy. You could argue, well, he was taken out as a player because he had to sit on the Golden Throne. It's like, I understand that, but he's just like such a non-character in so many of these books. It's just like, I don't care. And it's like, you keep telling me that he has all these plans. It's like, did he? Because it kind of seemed like there wasn't really a plan other than send a bunch of super dudes into space and have them shoot people. That seems like, honestly, it was like the sum total of his plan. Like, if we're being real. But yeah, I don't know. I'm glad the Horus Heresy is over. I kind of wish they did something more interesting in these last 3 books, but hey, I think I'm in the minority on that, and I think that a lot of folks really enjoyed it. So I know I'm in the minority. I just wanted to give my opinion, where I'm just like, man, I don't know. I was just kind of bored and just thought for a lot of it, it just seemed like they really weren't even trying that hard, you know? But I don't know. I can't say they weren't trying hard. I don't know how much work actually went into this. I'm assuming a lot, probably, but it just feels like, I feel like maybe it was just a flawed endeavor to begin with, because there's just so much going on. There's so much pre-established lore as well. There's so much lore just from the Horus Heresy books that when you try to like come to an end point, you're just never gonna find, I don't think you can find a satisfying thing. I think there's just too much going on. And I mean, I just don't really think it's that interesting. Oh, also, if you're a fan of like the whole thing where the Lion and Russ meet and fight after the siege, yeah, that doesn't happen here. I think there was some talk about there being a scouring series. We don't need there to be a scouring series. We just don't. We don't need there to be a scouring series. Leave well enough alone, for God's sakes. But who am I kidding? I think people would love that, so I shouldn't be like denying that. I think we should just go, hey man, if you really want to do that, go ahead and do it. But for me personally, I just don't think I could possibly read the scouring series. I'm honestly at a point where I don't think I could pick up another. Not that I have that many more Horus Heresy books to go through. I think there's like 20, maybe 20. I don't know. There's some amount in there, and I'm just not really. I'm just really not feeling read any more of these, because I just don't care anymore. I guess that would leave me at 44. No, 43, yeah. And that's good enough. I don't need any more. Anyway, if you enjoyed it, I'm really glad you guys enjoyed it. Look, I'm not trying to tell you that you can't enjoy it or anything like that. It's just, for me personally, I personally thought a lot of it was just really boring, and I just don't care. I mean, at a certain point, it was just like all of these interesting ideas. You just managed to flub it to me. It's just boring to read. I don't know. Anyway, I hope that you guys all have a wonderful day. And if you did enjoy, talk about it in the comments below, or talk about maybe where you disagree with me or anything like that. But I hope you all have a wonderful day. I hope you know that I love you and God loves you, and bye-bye. I love you. Bye. Have a great one. Bye.